been a nice day. The weather wasn't too hot, which I will never complain about. So it's nice to get here and not have to crank up the air conditioning. 1956, the Federal Aid Highway Act was signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Since then, the U.S. interstate system has grown into a massive network of controlled access highways spanning the whole United States. It's a complex system. It's changed the way Americans travel from one place to another since its inception. It's the way that Sarah and I got from Wyoming to Michigan in just 2 long days of travel with all of our belongings in a big truck and with a cat and Sarah following behind me. Made that trip a lot easier. If we hadn't had the interstate, I can't imagine how long that would have taken. To give you an idea of what the interstate system can do versus just normal highways and roads, here is an idea of our regular weekly Sabbath trip, with and without the interstates. On the way here, typically we take mostly interstate till we get off, and then the rest of it is back roads and stuff like that. But if we took all interstates and then freeways, which are basically like the interstate system, it would take us 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is our normal route here, with freeways and interstates. If the interstates and freeways did not exist, it would take us 3 hours. So you add another hour to get from our place to here. That's how much the interstates really do speed up travel. It makes a difference in travel times, even though the distance is longer if we took the interstates and the freeways all the way here. It's a longer distance, but the higher rate of travel, no stops, really gets us here in much faster time. Of course, they're fast because there are rules that can hinder certain actions of drivers. For instance, you can't just stop on the side of the road. It's typically not legal to just pull over, stop, get out, and do something. If you are stopping, it's because of an emergency. If you do have to get out, or if you do need to turn around, you can't just pull across the median and turn around. I mean, you can, it's not legal, but typically, if you did want to go back the other direction, you have to wait to the next exit, which could be 2-3 miles down the road, get off, take the exit, and then you find out there's not an entrance ramp on the other side. Then you have to sit there and follow Google for another 10 minutes trying to find your way back to the interstate. It's an interesting system. There are minimum speeds keeping you moving along. You can't just get on there with a bicycle. You can't get on there with a slow-moving moped. It's designed for cars to go fast. It's there to keep traffic moving. That's what it's there for, and it does work. Of course, one of the things I've struggled with driving on interstates is, what do you do when you see somebody on the side of the road? Even on the way here, we came up, we're driving along the interstate, and there was a car off in the distance, flashers on. We realized there were 2 cars, and one of them was out changing their tire. Often you're moving along at 75 miles an hour or faster. Here it's mostly 70. Where we came from, it was 75 on the interstate or 80, depending on the stretch of I-80 you're on. By the time you spot somebody, it's too late to hit the brakes and pull in behind them. By the time you ascertain what's going on, you're already a mile down the road, and you can't, again, get off the interstate and just pull back around. It makes it hard to figure out what you could do to help somebody. And as somebody who has been stuck on the side of the interstate with car problems, you kind of understand it's a difficult position. We were going down to Ohio once, and a muffler fell off. The muffler of somebody's car I was driving collapsed, and we were sending sparks down the interstate behind us. So we had to pull off. It was late. Sarah's family was in a vehicle behind us, and we couldn't get out and do much on the side of the road. You've got semis zipping by you at 70 miles an hour. You can feel your car kind of buffeting in the wind by every car that zips by you. It's not a situation that gives you safety on the side of the road to do stuff. Even changing a tire on a fast interstate system can be treacherous. Contrast that to a normal highway or just a typical country road. Even the highway that Sarah and I used to take down to church, US 287 in Wyoming and Colorado, is 65. There's lots of room on the side. If you did need to turn around, you could get there. I've had the ability out in Wyoming to stop sometimes, because by the time you see them, you can say, okay, I could stop, turn around easily, go back and say, hey, do you guys need some help? Is there something we can do? Do you have a signal? Can you contact somebody? Of course, in Wyoming, there's not much between you and somebody ahead because we have no trees to block the view. It's all flat plains, and you can see a car 10 miles down the road. Here, you've got too many trees. So, that kind of blocks the view a little bit. I remember coming back from our first feast. Sarah and I were coming back from Denver to Laramie, and there was a guy stuck on the side of the road. He was about 12 miles out. He was out of fuel. It was late September at about 8,000 feet. He didn't have a coat. It was going to be a pretty chilly time if he was stuck there, and I think we ended up giving him a ride back into Laramie because we had the ability to. Now, of course, when you do something like that, you have to use a little bit of wisdom. Who are you stopping for? What could go wrong? I would not say Sarah should stop for any random person on the side of the road because that's not the world we live in. I've not really had the ability to stop for somebody on the interstate because it just doesn't work like that. High speed with no chance to stop or help or just even enjoy things. That's the interstate system. It's so fast. The interstate, while being an amazing feat of engineering and planning, just sums up our culture today. You got to go. You can't stop. If we do, it's a quick on and off. We got to get to our destination and then back on our way. I can't help because it's not easy or it's dangerous. Does this mindset affect the lives that we live today? Turn with me really quickly to 2 Thessalonians. Let's see. Make sure I got the right note here. Second Thessalonians 3 and verse 13. It says, "But as for you, brethren, do not grow weary in doing good." And we can grow weary by going too fast in our lives, by putting ourselves in situations where we can't do good for others, where we can't help, and we can't offer support. Satan has guided humanity to create in a world that's just so fast-paced that we just don't really have the opportunities to stop and help. We can't slow down safely to offer assistance. It's something we need to be on guard for in our Christian lives. My title for this sermonette here is, and I'm playing off the interstate system, so it's a little play on words, the title is Avoiding Having This Interstate of Mind. Avoid having this interstate of mind. It's a state of mind that we can find ourselves in, going so fast all the time. Turn with me to Hebrews, and we'll read a couple verses here. Hebrews 13. And we'll start in verse 14. "For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come." We are on a journey to something that is yet in the future. "Therefore, by him, let us continually offer the sacrifice of praise to God, that is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name." In verse 16, "But on this journey that we are on, do not forget to do good and to share, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased." God says, don't forget to do things for people. It's not that we can always stop for somebody on the side of the interstate, and there's not always something we can always do, but it's a mindset that can affect us because we're always on the move, we're always on the go. Let's jump back to verse 1 in chapter 13 here. It says, "Let brotherly love continue. Do not forget to entertain strangers." Sometimes somebody that we don't know needs some help. For by so doing, some have unwittingly entertained angels. Remember the prisoners as if chained with them. Put yourself in their position. Have some empathy for people around us. We've all been there, stuck on the side of the road, and remember how it was for you. Those who are mistreated, since you yourselves are also in the body also. And we should help where we can. I'm not saying we have to stop for every parked car along the road and we have to use wisdom to know when or where we should do these things. But are we moving so fast we couldn't stop even if we wanted to? Do we grow weary in doing good since we're moving too fast and wearing ourselves out from day to day? Even God knows we need to slow down a bit. He says, remember the Sabbath day, a day to rest and relax a little bit from the world. Take an exit off the freeway of life and this world's systems. Get out of the vehicle, enjoy what God's made, and enjoy it with people of like mind. Now, slightly ironically for this message, the Sabbath day is the day that Sarah and I drive the most, and many other people do too. Many ministers, you drive a lot. This week, I think our car had 60 miles on it this morning. By the end of the day, we'll put another 300. So that's our Sabbath versus our normal week. We don't drive much during the week. But since we've moved here, we've been trying to make it to where we can stop along the way. We stop in small cities. We're trying to find little cafes along the way. Or, I see some deer out and I say, hey, Sarah, stop quickly. And I can grab the camera and get a picture. You can't do that on the interstate because if you stop quickly on the interstate, then you get rammed into by a truck and it's bad. On the little back road, you can find ways to make it a little bit more pleasant. Turn with me to Luke 10 here, and I'm going to read a story that we all know pretty well, and I'm going to put it more into a context of this interstate system. This is Luke 10, and we're going to start in verse 29. Now, this is the story of the Good Samaritan. I'm going to go through it and kind of give it this interstate theme. Now, somebody is asking Christ, who is my neighbor? Who do I need to help? Who do I need to stop for? And, who is my neighbor? Verse 30 now it says, Then Jesus answered and said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now, this could be a different situation where somebody has a blowout on the side of the road. Maybe put that into this different context of something that we might come across. It could be somebody injured, but in this context, I'm putting it there. Now, by chance, a certain priest came down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Again, on the interstate, you're zipping along at 70 miles an hour. You see somebody up ahead, you get over in the other lane just so you don't cause a problem, and you zip by. That's probably not why the priest was doing it here, but you think, I'm going too fast. I can't stop. I know this person might need help, but I hope they have AAA to help. That's sometimes the mindset we can get in. In verse 32, it says, Likewise, a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked. He knew that there was a problem here and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. I've been in this situation, or maybe I've known somebody else who was, or I just look at this person with some suffering. I'm going to stop. I'm going to do what I can to help. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds. Maybe he helped in a modern situation where I'm talking about, he helped change the tire. Maybe he said, I'll go get you some fuel for your car. Of course, this can apply to any kind of situation in life. He bandages his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. He set him on his own animal, got him in his own car, and brought him to an inn to take care of him. Maybe get him to a mechanic. Maybe take the tire to where he can get patched. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeepers and said, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come, I will repay you. So which of these two do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And they said, He who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said, Go and do likewise. It's a little bit hard to go and do likewise when we're moving so fast and we can't stop and slow down to help somebody. Again, we may not have the ability or skill to help anybody that we see, but maybe we can get them some help. Maybe we can have compassion and figure out some way. But do we constantly put ourselves in situations where we can't do anything if we normally could? Again, the interstate system or freeways generally don't really lend themselves to stopping quickly or going back to help. And we get in this mindset of, I hope somebody will stop for them. I hope they've got AAA that will come. I hope a tow truck will be there soon. I hope they've got cell phone connection so somebody else can help them. This world, the one that humans have willingly set up, at times is so fast-paced, it's not easy or convenient to stop, take time, assess, or help in any situation from day to day. And sometimes it's just nice to get off the freeways and enjoy the trip a little bit more. It can be a lot prettier once you get off these busy routes. Speed and busyness can make even the most meaning and well-minded person unable to do what they can. But this is the world that we've made for ourselves. No time to stop and help, no chance to pull over and enjoy the view because it's dangerous, or because the view is so far behind us by the time we realize we want to pull off, it's hard to go back and view it. This interstate of mind isn't a healthy one. This interstate system that we have, it's useful for driving. It gets people from point to point, usually in an efficient way overall. People go way too fast on it, but that's a different story. It takes a lot of us to the feast. Most of us will get from our homes to wherever we're going at that time, and it's just the fastest, easiest route. But does the interstate mindset affect us more than we realize? Do we take time to get off and take the slower roads through our lives? Do we find ways to slow down and enjoy the trip that we're on? Or do we leave ourselves where we can't stop and help somebody in need from day to day? Certainly there are parts of our Christian lives that can't be laid back. We're called to run a race. It's more of an endurance than a sprint, but there is speed involved in our lives. And things must be overcome quickly because Christ is coming quickly after all. But often what helps us along the journey is taking the time to be with people that we enjoy being with. There are things that God has given us that we can do for others, and being able to help others when we can is important. So we have to pull off sometimes and take the slower routes and find that taking our time is very important. So avoid a fast pace if you can, and find ways to help where you can.